Could you imagine turning $2,000 into $5 billion in your retirement investment account? Furthermore, could you imagine not having to pay any taxes on that $5 billion? Now you're probably thinking, that could never happen. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it did happen to Peter Thiel, and it's such an interesting story that I had to do a video on it. In this video, we'll briefly talk about who Peter Thiel is, and then we'll get into how he turned $2,000 into $5 billion tax-exempt dollars, and then we'll talk about how you can emulate his strategy. Now, the chances of you becoming a billionaire using this strategy are slim to none, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't do the same thing. One of the objectives of this channel is to show you how to effectively build long-term wealth. So I'm hopeful that you'll have some takeaways from this video that you can use in your own personal financial journey. So make sure you tune in until the end, hit the thumbs up button, and make sure you subscribe to this channel because I'm gonna be dropping some serious knowledge today and in the future. I'm not going to get into Peter Thiel's entire life story, but I do want to provide a professional background on him so that you have a better understanding of who he is and how he grew $2,000 to $5 billion. In terms of his education, Peter Thiel is a Stanford guy through and through. He graduated from the university with a BA in philosophy in 1989, and he later earned his JD from Stanford Law School in 1992. After working as a securities lawyer for some time, he later co-founded PayPal in 1998 and served as its chief executive officer until PayPal was sold to eBay in 2002 for $1.5 billion. Now at this point, he's already got one hell of a resume, but this isn't where his story ends. At this point, it's just getting started. After PayPal, he founded Clarium Capital, a global macro hedge fund based out of San Francisco. Then in 2004, he launched Palantir Technologies, a big data analysis company, and served as its chairman through 2019. In 2005, while he was working on building out Palantir into the monster that it is today, he simultaneously started the Founders Fund with his PayPal partners, and one of their first acquisitions was buying a 10.2% stake in Facebook for $500,000, which he mostly sold off in 2012 for more than $1 billion. According to Bloomberg's latest Billionaires Index, Thiel has an estimated net worth of $6.74 billion. Okay, I think you guys get the point. This man has quite the resume and he is very good at what he does. But I didn't make this video to show his background and discourage you in any way. I wanted to make this video to encourage you and show you how he turned $2,000 into $5 billion through a simple investment vehicle called a Roth IRA, which is an investment vehicle that most people in America have access to, but don't utilize as much as they should. If you're curious what a Roth IRA is and how Peter Thiel leveraged a Roth IRA to grow $2,000 into $5 billion tax-exempt dollars, that's what I'm going to be covering in the next part of this video, so make sure you stay tuned. A Roth individual retirement account, or better known as a Roth IRA, is a retirement account that allows qualified withdrawals on a tax-free basis if certain conditions are satisfied. Long story short, if you're over 59 and a half, you can pull your money out of a Roth IRA without having to pay taxes. The main difference between a traditional IRA and a Roth IRA is that with a Roth IRA, you pay taxes on the money when it's going into the account, and all future withdrawals are tax-free as long as you meet the criteria, mainly being 59 and a half or older. Now, with a traditional IRA, you don't pay taxes when you put money into the account, you pay taxes when you withdraw the money. So Roth IRA, you pay taxes when the money goes into the account. In a traditional IRA, you don't pay taxes when you put the money into the account, you pay taxes when the money is taken out. Brief history lesson, Roth IRAs were established in 1997 and were named after a former Delaware senator named William Roth, who was the main sponsor of the legislation that created the Roth IRA. Now in Peter Thiel's case, he started a Roth IRA and funded it with less than $2,000 back in 1999, and he didn't contribute a penny after that initial deposit. And as of 2019, according to ProPublica, the research company who found his tax statements, that same $2,000 is now worth $5 billion. Ladies and gentlemen, Peter Thiel is 53 years old right now, and if he waits until he's 59 and a half years old, he can withdraw the entire balance of $5 billion tax-free. That's right, he won't have to pay a penny in taxes on that $5 billion because he already paid taxes on his initial $2,000 deposit. And before anyone says that this is completely ludicrous, what he has been able to do is completely legit, and this is something that pretty much anyone living in this country can do as well, and that's why financial education is so important, and that's part of the reason why I started this channel. If this video even inspires 1 or 2 people watching to open a Roth IRA, my mission is complete. Now let's jump into the next part of this video and let's talk about what investments he made to grow his Roth IRA to an enormous amount. Peter Thiel used his Roth IRA in a very different way than the average investor uses their Roth IRA. Now, the average investor would probably buy some quality stocks, maybe buy some index funds, some ETFs, or other well-known and well-established investments. But in Peter Thiel's case, he used a Roth IRA a little differently. Now, back in 1999, he used $1,700 to buy 1.7 million shares of PayPal. Now, to put that in perspective, today, PayPal trades at roughly $290 a share, and according to today's share price, $1,700 would get you roughly 6 shares of PayPal. But back in 1999, when Peter Thiel invested into PayPal, he only paid a tenth of a penny per share, and that's how he was able to buy 1.7 million shares for $1,700. But even at today's share price of roughly $290, 1.7 million shares in PayPal would only be worth roughly $491 million. So how did he get his account value to $5 billion? Well, PayPal was just the start of some amazing investments that paid out in a big way. Like I mentioned before, PayPal was acquired by eBay in 2002, and when that happened, Peter Thiel sold off his shares. And according to estimates, with the sale of his PayPal shares in 2002, his account value grew to $30 million. He then used that $30 million to buy shares of Palantir while it was still private, along with some other Silicon Valley startups. And if you know anything about Palantir, it's an absolute monster today. Based on my research, I wasn't able to find out what other companies he purchased besides Palantir in his Roth IRA, but if you know, please let me know in the comments below. But by buying shares through his Roth IRA, that $30 million of PayPal profits, as well as all subsequent profits, are not subject to taxes as long as he waits until he's 59 and a half years old to pull out the money. If there's a moral to this story, it's that you need to start a Roth IRA as soon as possible. Now, most of you probably know this, but 99.99% of us, or even more perhaps, won't be able to grow a Roth IRA the way that Peter Thiel did. Although what Peter Thiel did is completely legit, most of us won't be able to replicate what he was able to do because most of us don't have the opportunity to buy early stage startups or invest in private companies because the majority of us don't have access to those investments. But that doesn't mean that we can't leverage the power of a Roth IRA to establish a better financial future for ourselves and our families. If you're under 50 years old and make less than $125,000 a year, you can contribute up to $6,000 a year into a Roth IRA. Now, the rules are different if you make over $125,000 a year, and if you're married, you are subject to a different set of rules. But that's not the point. The point is that you should open a Roth IRA as soon as you can. And if you'd like, I can do a video on opening a Roth IRA and I can dive into the advantages and disadvantages of having one. And if you think that would be helpful, let me know in the comment section below. Now, I'm not a tax professional, but based on my research and based on my experience, the wealthiest people in this country are taking advantage of a Roth IRA, so why shouldn't you? You pay taxes on the way in, and you don't have to pay taxes on the way out as long as you meet the criteria, the main one being that you're at least 59 and a half years of age or older. Again, I'm not a tax expert, but with the national debt at $28 trillion, my guess is that taxes will be higher in the future, not lower. So why not take advantage of these programs while they are here and while they are structured the way that they are? I mean, wouldn't you want to pay today's tax rate instead of tomorrow's tax rate? All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for watching. I hope you found this video helpful, and I hope I inspired some of you to open a Roth IRA. If I didn't, I still hope you learned something new today. And with that, I'm out. I'll see you all next time.